Your hips are the center of movement for your body, so the less restricted your hips become, the more potential your body has for strength and power. We're going to be doing some simple and effective stretches that can be modified to your personal and current abilities and limitations throughout this video.
Hello, it's Kaitlyn Seibold, and I'm a member of the Frog in Hand Summer Company, the 2021 season. Today we're going to be doing some mobility exercises for the hip flexors and some stretches, so if you want to grab a mat and follow along.
We're going to start this practice today by sitting on our mats. So let's begin to draw some awareness to the part of the body we're going to be focusing on today, the hip flexors. So start by creating some friction, giving it a little love. Let's acknowledge this part of the body by rubbing or patting, or simply holding your hand on top of your hip flexors. Let's start with some lying hip rotations. So lying on our back with both knees bent, let's cross one ankle on top of the opposite knee. We're going to press out this stretch by rotating the hip and pressing our hand into our knee. So we can hold this stretch, or we can move in and out by rotating the hip in and out. Okay, now let's advance this stretch by crossing an ankle on top of the opposite knee. We're going to grab the back of your opposite leg and lift it towards the rest of your body. So let's hold this stretch, and while we're holding it, let's add in some ankle rotations, a little multitasker movement. And then simply place our feet down, back on the ground, and we're going to switch legs. Doing the same thing, making sure our hip is rotating out. Grab the back of your opposite leg and let's press them towards our body. We can also put a hand on our opposite side of the knee to create some stretch, extra tension, and again with the ankle rolls. And when we're finished, simply come back to our neutral position. Great, now still working with the same, let's call it neutral position. Let's cross one leg fully over top of the opposite leg, and we're gonna pull that crossed knee towards your opposite shoulder. So this stretch can be kind of intense sometimes, so if it's too intense for you, you can switch it up by sitting on a chair with your leg bent, then cross your other leg over the bent leg and rotate your chest towards your knee by pulling your body towards the crossed knee. So we're really focusing on stretching a muscle that's located deep in the buttock, the piriformis. This muscle tends to get pretty tight, especially if we're sitting for most of the day. So again, crossing that leg over, pulling it to our opposite shoulder, and just focusing on finding that little tiny muscle that needs that stretch. Okay, fantastic. So next we're going to move to our classic butterfly stretch. This stretch is great for the groin muscles and for improving hip rotation to the side. So we're going to focus on really alignment in this position and how to get the most out of this simple stretch. Okay, so for the rest of our stretch here in this position, we're just going to do a little bit of a follow along. So I'm crossing my one arm over to my opposite leg, and then I'm also going to give the hip flexors a little love here in this position. I'm going to grab my feet. I'm going to move my butterfly position open a little bit, so moving my feet forward. I'm going to go into a high lift. I'm going to curve my back here in this position and then scoop forward with my nose. And I'm going to be lifting my chest to the sky and then returning back to neutral. So we're going to do this sequence a couple more times, lifting up, curving in, scooping through, and bringing my chest to the sky, and then returning back to neutral. Now I invite you just to release over. You can really do anything in this position. You can hold it still, or you can sway back and forth like I'm doing. I'm then going to reach my hands as far as I can over top of my head, reaching out and stretching and taking a couple deep breaths in this position. Great, now let's move into a kneeling lunge position. So let's make sure our knee is making a line directly above our toe. And we're going to focus on making our hips square and having our chest tall. So reaching with our hand, we're going to grab our foot and press it towards our leg, pull it towards our leg, creating a deep stretch. So you may need some trial and error to find the best front foot positioning, which happens when your shin is upright and when you lean forward rather than being angled down or back. So don't be afraid to adjust your back leg in this positioning to get the most out of this stretch, to really focus on releasing your hip flexors. Next, we're going to move our front leg forward in our lunge position, and we're going to move into a deepened lunge position. So making sure our knee, again, is not going over top of the line of our toe. So we're going to repeat this a few times on each leg. You can either hold it for a long time on each side, or you can go into some sort of pulsing action as long as it's a gentle pulse. And then we're going to switch sides and repeat. Okay, so now let's move into some internal rotations in the squatting position. So starting in a deep squat, we're going to rotate one knee inward, down towards the ground. This is a dynamic movement, so you don't really have to focus on holding the end position very long at all. Just keep moving and give yourself some time to work through this movement. Okay, let's now move into a pigeon stretch. So moving forward, this stretch is really great for not just hip mobility, but also your hamstring and spine flexibility. So starting with your front knee bent to a 90-degree angle, the back knee can be bent or extended, whatever is comfortable for you. Keeping your chest tall, or if it's too intense of a stretch, we can move into a slight angle, but just making sure our back is straight. So I invite you to start moving around in the stretch. So you can wiggle back and forth. You can move your body up and down, side to side, create a wave with your spine. Any small type of movement that promotes releasing into this position. And you can really be creative with that part. So we can just switch sides anytime you'd like. You can do this for as long as you want to really open up those hip flexors. So to end our practice today, let's lie on our backs and bring our legs up to hug our chest. And then let's bring our feet flat on the floor, knees bent, still lying on the floor, and bring our knees to one side of our body. So letting our head move as well to shift to the opposite side. And then just keep repeating this from side to side. So just letting your knees drop to one side and just releasing everything once we get to that position. Great. So now let's bring our legs back up to our hugged position, and let's begin to create or draw little circles with our lower back on the floor. So really pressing into the floor, and then we're going to switch to the other side while we engage in some deep breaths.
Thank you so much for following along. These exercises can be done with a few reps or a lot of reps, and just allowing yourself to find the movement within the shapes and the stretches that we're creating to warm up these parts of the body that we want to find some release in. Thank you.